The pressure for mutual support, those who you can partner with to gain needed resources, whether material or spiritual. Acceptance and rejection of others in relationship. Coming up with potential answers to problems that could provide a more secure future. Planning ahead. Plus, we continue with the heightened emotionality and willpower within communities. These are all pressures and qualities that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for February 7th to 12th, 2026 bring. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. Before we get into the weather, I want to let you know that I've opened registration for the Staying Rooted through the 2027 Global Cycle Shift program. In February of 2027, the background energy that we as humanity live within is going to change, like the prevailing wind shifting from the way of community to the nature of individuality. So I've put together a program where we're going to do a deep dive into the current frequencies that we have now, what's coming in 2027, and on one of the 4 live calls that's part of this program, I'm going to do a workshop where I'll review your personal human design body graph with you to look at what's aligned and supported for you in each cycle and what's not. These global cycles operate at a very deep level compared to the transit field that we're looking at in these weather reports. And they're with us for over 400 years. So they're the deepest conditioning on humanity as a whole. So this, looking at your own chart with you in relation to these frequencies, is going to help you both see what's happening in the world around you and also the pressures that you might feel without taking it personally. So you can find the link in the show notes or comments with more info that will give you a deeper outline, the cost and the registration, if that's something that you're interested in. Use your strategy and authority. If you're not sure that it's for you, but you want a little taste, I did a 90-minute webinar last week to give an overview of this global cycle change, and the replay will be available until Monday, February 9th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a pay what you want, anywhere from $7 to $27. You choose. And you can view it anytime, but the purchase has to be made by 11 p.m. Eastern on Monday. If from that you decide that you want to do the full program, I will give you a coupon to deduct what you paid for the webinar from the program price. So just wanted to let you know about that's going to be coming up. That program will start on February 17th, which is a new moon and also St. Patrick's Day. All right. Well, let's dive into this cycle now. It begins on February 7th at 8:49 a.m., going until the 12th at 10:12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Universal Time coordinates, that's coming in February 7th at 3:49 p.m., going until the 13th at 5:12 a.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We have the Sun moving into gate 49, activating the trait of revolution and higher principles in the solar plexus emotional center. The emotional center is a motor that brings the emotional wave, the highs and lows of emotions from hope to pain and joy to sorrow. And it's also an awareness center. It's our newest awareness center, that emotional intelligence. This trait's part of the tribal circuitry that always carries that theme of mutual support. You do this for me, I do that for you. Now, we saw a few cycles ago, it's electromagnetic, gate 19, the trait of wanting and needing in the root center, which brings the fuel of need and is looking for who can help to fulfill those needs. Well, here we have gate 49 on the other side with its potential awareness to know who or what is needed or not, to maintain the community or to restructure it. If through this awareness this trait brings, you can see that there is a need that would benefit the tribe, which is the family, the community, the nation, whatever groups you're part of. It can bring the ability to look at the potential needs both materially and spiritually and see which are worth fighting for. And whoever or whatever brings that need, well, they're going to need to be aligned to your principles. Its keynote says, ideally, the transformation of forms based on the highest principles and not simply for power. So the transformation of forms is ultimately about organizing the resources of the tribe. Its highest expression is that the bringing in and distribution of resources is for the benefit of all, not just an egoic power play where one benefits and others do not, or only a small group get to benefit and others don't. In order to bring change to the tribe, to have that revolution or restructuring, the support has to be there for that change. It needs to be seen by the other members of the group, of the tribe, as necessary. With this trait present, it can bring clarity on what your own principles are and who's aligned for you and who's not in your relationships. This is going to bring the pressure to require alignment with your principles, obeying your principles in order to provide what's needed so that you can really come into communion with that other or others. You may also find that you want to come into greater spiritual communion with, well, this trait is present. Communication through touch is a quality that this trait brings out as well. The tribe often communicates through touch. So there may be heightened responsiveness to a hand on the shoulder or a hug or so on. Or there could be an emotional, don't touch me. That could come out here as well. It brings a sensitivity to the needs of others, and you may be willing to provide resources to support them if they align and you have those resources to give. In this case, you can put your energy into the revolution necessary to shift the principles in the relationship, the family, the community when needed. As part of the channel of marriage, literally or metaphorically, says, hey, we align, we fit. And the gate of divorce, we do not align and need to separate. It could bring some discernment here around this. So this is a trait that can bring acceptance or rejection of others. And you may find yourself accepted or rejected. It's a good time for a reminder that rejection due to lack of alignment is not necessarily a bad thing, right? But there's a big caution here. This is an emotional trait. So you need to watch that you're not making a decision on who's aligned or not based on being in the high or low of the emotional wave. It takes time and patience to get that clarity. This is a trait that carries fear of rejection. So watch that you're not making choices based on that fear, especially in the context of relationships. This is where we can sometimes see people pleasing coming in or doing things that are misaligned so that you don't get rejected, right? Out of that fear of rejection. So just something to note there. This energy can be hypersensitive and dramatic towards those that don't align. This is very emotional, right? So what? Why would you do that when I told you not to? How could you possibly believe that? Right? All these things that, again, can lead to rejection of the other. Again, this is an emotional trait. So those principles, right? It's the trait of higher principles. It's going to be around how you feel about something, not necessarily what's logical. So don't be too fast to accept or reject someone or something. It does take time to know whether they're truly aligned or not. And a hasty decision could lead to regret and wasting energy. So follow your strategy and authority on that. Gate 49 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 4, the trait of youthful folly and answers in the Ajna center, the seat of the mind. This is part of the mental logic process that can come up with potential answers to improve the patterns and formula that we use towards creating a better life for humanity. Logical circuitry always has us looking to the future and thinking about how we can make our plans happen. So you may find yourself caught up in that mental theorizing and planning this cycle. Logic wants that safety, predictability, and reliability. If this trait impacts you, you can enjoy that mental exploration of potential ways to achieve your objectives or pondering on what's working or not in our collective society and institutions, knowing that it will take time and investigation into the details and facts to really formulate what might work. The answers here within this trait and what comes out of them are only potentials at this point. So watch that you're not grabbing onto any of them as the answer. Watch as well that you're not jumping to conclusions based on this. Again, they're just potentials at this stage, hence the youthful folly name that this trait has. This trait can also bring a fear of chaos and of uncertainty in your path forward, and could have you taking hasty action to try to bring some semblance of certainty, right? That not self mind is always looking for certainty. Remember that your mind is not what you use to make decisions for your own life. That's your strategy and authority. So watch that you're not giving authority for your decision making over to your mind while this trait is present. There's no motor here. There's no action to take based on what you think. The mental processes all end at the throat through the sharing with others. When we look at the Sun Earth positions together, you might find yourself thinking about how to reliably get needed resources. Who are reliable people in your life? There could be jumping into a relationship that you think will be the answer to getting the resources you need to try to bring certainty to your life. Again, Gate 49 is emotional, it takes time, and decisions from your life aren't to be made from the mind's processes. All right, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact that way. We have our long-term channel that's been with us since December 22nd and will continue until May 13th. This is being created by the nodes of the moon, and they are defining the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. This is part of the same tribal stream of our sun's position, gate 49. So that's going to amplify even more that theme of mutual support. And if people are feeling taken advantage of, that's going to be amplified in this cycle. The North Node is in Gate 37, the trait of friendship and family, while the South Node is in Gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in that willpower center. As the channel of the marriage contract and agreements in general, there's going to be an emphasis on that fairness in relationships. There are many themes which are embedded within this channel, and we will see these play out. Loyalty and betrayal, jealousy and friendship, possessiveness and generosity, negotiation of contracts and breakdown of agreements. It can bring a sense of feeling taken advantage of or feeling supported. It brings a pressure to come together in family, in community. It's emotional, so there could be emotional outbursts if there are people that are feeling that they're being taken advantage of. Along with the heightened emotionality, we also have the heightened willpower, which can bring a pushy energy, trying to force things. So something to watch there. This is the design of a part seeking a whole. So that pressure to find your place in your family, in your community, in the totality will be there. Events that impact communities for better or worse are going to have heightened emotional reactions to them. And people could end up joining communities that are not at all aligned out of just wanting some sense of belonging. There's an opportunity as well, though, to understand that just being you, living your design, being a unique being is what gives you your place in the totality. The channel of community is a channel of bargains and resources, is also about trade agreements. So we're seeing lots of that playing out within the collective, the trade agreements between nations, businesses, groups, communities, and countries coming together to create new agreements or breaking apart agreements that were there. All right, we have a short-term channel that's coming in right at the start of this because that gate 49 is going to connect with Mars position, the trait of wanting. It's finishing up. Mars is finishing up its time in that gate. So it's going to be here until February 9th at just after midnight, 12:39 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC, it'll go out on February 9th at 7:39 a.m. Together, this creates the channel of synthesis. Now, we have this channel with just a couple of short breaks since January 31st. We had like a 1 hour break from it on February 1st and about a day and a half from February 5th to 7th. So here we go again. And this is the design of being sensitive. This is tribal again. It's in the same stream as that channel of community. So being sensitive to the needs of others in this case. It's also a place where there can be hypersensitivity or insensitivity around needs. Gate 49 has that potential awareness, as we've talked about, to really hone in on what's needed out of all the potential needs that you might have. And it's the pressure to establish common ground for relationships where needs and principles are aligned or for breakdown when the alignment's not there. Now, there is an opportunity with this to really have that drive with that root connection, bringing that energy to make change in the tribe. The synthesis is about bringing different things together to create something new that will serve the family, the community, the nation that's not being looked after currently. Ideally, this is a place where in relationships, there's an interdependence. Each can maintain their individuality within the relationship. However, we can also see here relationships that are based on dependency playing out. Next up, we have a medium-term channel that actually started on February 3rd and continues on in this cycle until February 10th at 5:43 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's February 10th at 12:43 p.m. UTC. We have Venus activating gate 30, the trait of recognition of feelings in the solar plexus emotional center, connecting with Pluto's position, activating gate 41, the trait of decrease and contraction in the root center. So here we go, root to emotional again. Lots and lots of pressure for emotionality this cycle, especially in the first part. Together, they're creating the channel of recognition, design of focused energy. This is part of the abstract experiential circuitry. And here it's the drive and pressure to enter into a new experience. That starts with the fantasizing in gate 41 and then focusing down to the one that's really of most valuable and reasonable to see through to its end. And gate 30 is that trait of desire. So where 41 is more innocent, just fantasizing, 30 is in an awareness center. And now this is the clinging fire. This is the deep yearning and desire to really have that experience. The opportunity it brings is to get clarity from all the new experiences that you might fantasize about having in the future to narrowing down to that one you truly desire. However, there can be no expectations of what that experience will bring. You have to just surrender to it. And you can only go into one experience at a time to really get the most from it. All right, we have one channel that's being created by a transit of the moon. So it's just a little taster because the moon only activates a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. This one's coming in on February 8th at 2:39 p.m., going until the 9th at 1:54 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC coming in February 8th at 9:39 p.m., going until the 9th at 8:54 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate one, the trait of the creative in the G center. That's the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate eight, the trait of contribution being activated by Uranus in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of creative inspiration, a design of a creative role model. It's part of the individual circuitry that can bring through something new and mutative. It's a place where you can express your individuality out into the world. However, like all channels that go to the throat, you have to wait for it to be invited. Don't just blurt it out. All right, so there could be some creative inspiration that bursts through. It does operate in a pulse, and you can never know when that pulse is going to come through. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the nodes of the moon and the outer planets. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So the not-self mind could start to grab onto them like they're part of you, even when it's something that you don't have in your design. And then when that transit moves on, well, that can be a little confusing to the mind. All right, we don't have any gate or line changes from where we left things at the end of the last transit. So we've had lots of changes that were going on. Now we get a little period of just being with these ones that are here. So as we've already discussed, the nodes are activating that channel of community, that design of a part seeking a whole. Now the nodes in the transit field bring the homogenized perspective and direction that we see in the world. You have your own nodes for your direction. But this is what the transit field is saying. No, no, this is the direction that you need to go in. This is the perspective that you need to have. And as we talked about, it brings that amplified emotionality and willpower. Now, gate 37, that trait of friendship, is in line 4, where in the exaltation, those that exhibit exemplary behavior and the highest principles will be seen as the leaders over those who would be the traditional leaders. In the detriment, only the traditional leaders are seen as the ones who can be accepted. Typically, that's the patriarchal leaders. And even if they're not good role models, like there's a holding on to them as the leader. Gate 40 brings an ego that will organize work to balance work and rest. Well, that can be something at a personal level that's quite beneficial. It can really support you. You can learn more about that work-life balance and what really works for you. Now, in the detriment, if that ego is getting stroked, the ego does have to always be massaged, but if it's kind of open to anyone that will massage and stroke it and appreciate it without using any kind of discernment, it ends up that you spread yourself too thin. You're putting that work energy into all sorts of things that are not aligned. It's the workaholic, right? And ultimately ends up being less productive. We have Jupiter sitting in gate 53, the collective abstract trait of beginnings, and Jupiter's going to expand that pressure to start something new. It's in line 2 called momentum that has a developmental theme that says success breeds success. Now, the second line projects out that it can start something new and be successful in it. Maybe yes, maybe no. So there can be the pressure here to start something new based on past success, or the pressure based on success to be impatient for something new. Both polarities can play out here. Saturn's in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. It's sitting in line 2 called the existentialist, which is bringing the pressure to just be present to what is. Don't worry about what will be or what was. Be here now. Neptune's also sitting in gate 25, and it's in line 3 called sensibility. That has a developmental theme that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. Very practical, right? So only the exaltation of this trait is active in the world, and it says the power of the ego to withstand failure and still maintain its nature. The power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock. You can really hear that line 3 quality of resilience in that. Neptune's depth and psychic attunement can support this quality, although its veiling quality could make it more difficult to recognize. We have Uranus in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution and holding together. This is the voice of, I know I can contribute or not. And it's sitting in line 4 called respect. This is where individuals may bring out their unique contribution into the community in an influential way and be seen as a leader, even though they may not technically be the leader. So we see a continuity there with that tribal gate 37 being in that trait of friendship, also in line 4, that can be about the non-traditional leaders as well. Whoever has the highest principles can be seen as the leader. So 2 gates there that are bringing a very similar quality, one through the tribal, one through the individual. Now, we could also see individual contributions that are not out of the true creativity, but out of the ego need to impress. Uranus can be sidetracking. So there could be contributions that are meant to take people in the community off track. Pluto's in gate 41, the collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in that root center. We've got that in a channel for the first half of this cycle. That's that pressure to fantasize, to start something new, and eventually narrow it down to the one that's most reasonable. Now, it's in line 3 called efficiency. So we're in that line of trial and error and bonds made and broken again. It has a developmental theme that says in times of decrease, selfishness is justified. So here, that efficiency comes through trial and error, not efficient right away. In the exaltation, it's the energy that fuels the feeling for personal ambition, material ambition, and the discipline to go at it alone. So this is the pressure to go through an experience on your own and figure out which is the one, which is the right feeling to go with. And you do that through the trial and error process. In the detriment, there's this wanting to bring others into the experience. This is a collective gate. You want to share the experience with others, but that means more energy and resources are going to go into it. And the other's going to have their influence. So the purity, per se, of doing it your own way will be lost. You know, it's just 2 different ways to move through an experience. Overall, the biggest impact that we have through the transit field is on what's defined in the transit. And here we have that channel of community giving us the context, but also with that emotional center being activated, we have consistent access to the sun's position, that gate 49 trait of higher principles and revolution. So together, it's going to really amplify that theme of sensitivity or insensitivity to the needs and wants of those in your community. This is also the energy to gather, to share, to hug, and to foster relationships based on shared principles. There could be a revolution of some type in communities if needs are not being met or principles are not being upheld. Acceptance and rejection of those who are aligned or not with the principles in the community, in a country. Those could be highlighted. Remember, we've had gate 49 activated almost continuously since the end of January. And one thing we have seen is the release, for example, of more of the Epstein files in the US. That's resulted in people referenced in those documents within the US and outside of the US, stepping down or being removed from their positions, and some investigations being opened in other countries. So that's a great example of rejection of those who are not aligned with the principles, the morals, the values. That's going to be something that's intensified even more in this cycle. Neptune in gate 25 at a larger level has a lot to do with masking and unmasking. And we're seeing this unmasking, this unveiling that's happening. Remember that the transit field brings the traits that have the potential to homogenize as to their conditioning. And so it's what we see play out in the world where most people are not self rather than living their unique designs. With awareness, you can observe and learn from these frequencies rather than having them run you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes and so on, you're welcome to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'm always so grateful if you can give it a like and if it's correct for you to subscribe. Okay, so there's an opportunity to really feel into what relationships are a really good fit to your principles. That's something that will be enhanced this cycle, who's aligned and who's not. There also could be the opportunity to come up with potential answers to problems. And you might get some interesting potential answers from others to consider. New concepts around what needs to change in relationships and how to attain needed resources, both materially and spiritually, could come through. Sensitivity and insensitivity to needs and wants continues to be a theme. At the collective level, we may see revolutions within communities, countries, different groups, whether physical, economic, or conceptual. We continue to have that heightened emotionality with the channel of community, being amped up even more this cycle with the channels of synthesis right at the beginning for about a day and a half, and then the channel of recognition that will be there for the first half of the cycle. So overall, it's a very tribal cycle. So those themes of mutual support, relationships, contracts, and bargains that are fair, and just organizing your resources will be really supported this cycle if correct for you. Remember that it is emotional though. So you've got to wait out the highs and the lows to get clarity. All right. Well, have a great cycle and may you know, live, and love the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.